Give me a couple of seconds while I get set up.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much. How are you?
Very good, very good. Although I had a close call, I grabbed one of the I have like the Apple earphone things. I don't know what they're called, earpods. Anyway, I grabbed one and opened it to use for the call, and there was the case, but no ear, so I had to run up and down the stairs to look for my ones.
Mm.
But we're good to go.
Well, all ends that ends well.
Yeah, that was the excitement for my day, my quiet Sunday.
Speaking
How's
of
everything
which,
on? Yeah.
what happened to your Twitter account?
I I made a mistake. I was what was I doing? Oh, I was being an idiot, and I changed my profile pic. Did you see like last week or the week before? Uh, Vitalik Buterin was like putting stuff in tweets like imagine if there was a coin with the ticker THE and something like this, and then
Okay.
someone created of course that coin and this kind of stuff, and then he did it a few times like just in conversation on Twitter, and people were making coins, and then I decided it would be funny if I changed my name to Vitalik Buterin and my picture to him and said, wouldn't it be amazing if someone created a coin called hashtag or hashtag ETH? And that was it. But now my
Oh,
Twitter has been revoked, unfortunately.
oh, this is such a, you know, offense they took with your small little joke.
Yeah, I guess like the big joke is that, or I guess the big like issue that about like impersonating people and this kind of stuff, which I find very ironic because every other day I have people messaging me saying they're CZ or following you from this and that account, and yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, you have your, you have your kind of username which you cannot change.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So did you already appeal to Elon Musk? I heard a lot of people now are appealing to him to open their accounts now that he's taken
Yeah.
over.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting turn of events. I haven't done that, but I have been enjoying like the commotion, which is even bigger commotion than usual on the old Twitter.
I see. Yeah. First order of business is to fire half a company. I was honestly amazed that they have something like 7,500 people working at Twitter. It does seem quite a lot, but firing half of them
Yeah, yeah,
doesn't seem like a good first move.
yeah. One way to do it. Yeah, I mean it's crazy how many people they have working for them.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Uh, my wife had actually a very funny story because their company also reduced something like about 30% of workforce recently. Not her, but
Yeah.
other people.
Okay.
And what happened is that suddenly the databases, including like production databases, started disappearing. And when they tried to find out what's happening, uh, it turns out that the system administrator or the DevOps, he got an instruction to remove accounts of everybody who was laid off, right? But what he
Ah,
didn't notice is that some of those databases were deployed by the people that were laid off.
yeah.
So somehow these databases were constructed in a way that they also disappeared. So it was like a mess to restore all that. Yeah, crazy stuff.
No good.
Yeah, yeah. You should be careful when letting people go and then just, removing their stuff. It might be useful.
Yeah, you never know when you need like some piece of information, or in this case, one of the essential databases that goes with them.
Yeah. So before we start with our official topic, which is NFTs, there were, as usual, several interesting hacks. I will just mention them briefly. There was some decentralized exchange called QuickSwap DEX that was exploited using a flash loan attack, and then there was what was that other one? Mango Market obviously bragged about, like the guy bragged about that he did it. Shit was hacked.
Yeah.
Melodies. Think to earn. This was the favorite. This was my favorite one. Uh, yeah. Millennials discovering signal. Think to earn project Melody's official wallet was stolen, causing the token to plummet nearly 50%. Oh my God.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I mean,
Anyway, so now,
like some of these projects that come out is almost like as entertaining as anything else.
yeah. So happy Halloween is today, right?
In the UK, it is tomorrow, I believe.
Ah, okay. So there is no official Halloween in Israel, so I don't really know.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but we do have elections on Tuesday.
This is very like close to Halloween.
Yeah. And you know what? The difference between these two events is kind of minor.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So is
Yeah.
this like the election for the president or prime minister or?
Yeah, it's an election for the Knesset, which is 120 people deciding stuff, and they're divided into parties. Also, there is a prime minister who is elected by the from the party that can get a coalition of 61 people. And for the recent couple of years, there were like crazy amount of elections because they never could kind of maintain this government, and it would be disbanded, and then the new elections, then new elections. So everybody is pretty tired from all of these elections.
Yeah,
Is becoming, way too often to even care. And yeah, they're running out of slogans because how many new slogans can you invent here, like for your party, right? So you
yeah,
need a
true.
new one every 4 months. It's like crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah, so they're recycling everything basically. Now you see like things that you already saw before. It's like kind of Groundhog Day. Never mind. Um, yeah, but so for us, Halloween is a very interesting time because was it a year ago that we did our competition, or was it
it
two
was.
years?
Oh,
A year, 2 years?
it's a year, right? One
Yeah,
year ago today or tomorrow.
I think so. Yeah, and since then, it was like one of the most used applications on Beam blockchain. Yeah, 1 year, Amir says, and he's correct. The time flies so crazily, like I don't even know, like what's fucking.
Yeah,
And we did this kind of contest back then that started this entire kind of story of Beam NFTs. And for the first several months, I was uploading NFTs manually because we didn't even have self-minting function. Now, thankfully, we have it. And I think some of the projects and some of the collections did a great job. Beambots, obviously, and VS Nation has a lot of interesting applications running on that. Um, yeah, so uh, it's developing very nicely. We've released the version 2, and then we have promised version 3, which is not here as we had to do other stuff, but we are paying attention to what people want. And honestly, people really want a lot of great features that I really, really wish we could have, delivered all of that like immediately, but it takes time. And we're talking about um, things like royalties, first and foremost. We are talking about um, NFTs with multiple instances, basically like limited editions or even unlimited editions. Like, for example, if you want to have an NFT that's emulating a coin in a way, right? So you just want to mint some large amount, and you have this like, like a bill with some image and some denomination, and you want to use it of sorts. So that's another feature we have on our list, and many, many more. Honestly, I think that once we open the feature request process, I think the first kind of, I don't know, 100 will be full NFT related requests.
Yeah.
But let's start, with the general, like what's going on. Like I really have been very under water last several weeks. So like I could hardly follow on what's happening like in the world around, except for the things that like, just jump out like big hacks and stuff like that. What's happening with all of the big collections, the monkeys, the apes, I'm sorry, and the punks? Like I didn't hear anything about the crypto punks for like I don't know several months. What's going on with that? Is it still going on?
It's it's still a thing, I guess. But there has, at least from like what I see, there's been a lot less kind of attention across like all of the NFTs. I don't, let me bring it up. The last time I looked at them, the like floor price for CryptoPunks specifically was like 80 Ethereum or something like this. Um, but I'm not sure what it's done in the last. Okay, and looking at it's now 65 Ethereum, and I think that like I'm not super knowledgeable on the Bored Apes, but I think that they've suffered. Uh, also suffered from like the Ethereum price going down and also like a lack of liquidity across kind of all of the market and this kind of stuff. Uh, yeah, that's what I think is happening. But but it's still like 65 Ethereum is still roughly 100,000
Yeah, it's still a lot
United
of
States
money. Yeah.
dollars. It's still so much money, yeah.
Yeah, but so I saw like first of all, Twitter obviously integrated official API that you can take your NFT and put it as a profile picture.
Yeah.
And I think few others said that they're probably going to do the same. I don't know if anyone really did until now.
I, oh, someone that has done such a thing recently is Reddit. Have you seen this at all?
Yeah, yeah. I didn't see it, but I heard about it, like that they integrated this as well. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
major.
Yeah, like and it was really I saw some I don't use Reddit very often, but I saw some pictures on Twitter or whatever of people discussing like NFTs on Reddit, and it was really kind of funny. Like they didn't know what was going on almost. Like they didn't know they you could buy and sell the NFTs and this kind of stuff. And also one thing that's kind of fascinating for me at least is that whenever I looked on like Reddit in general, but more specifically about NFTs, a lot of the discourse there was rather, how to say, was pretty negative. Like negative on crypto in general, but for some reason they were even more vocally negative about NFTs. And so it's kind of fascinating to now see that Reddit's kind of dropping these NFT profile pictures and integrating even further with crypto and Web3.
Yeah, so like everything else in crypto, the early days full, with all kinds of speculative activities, right? People are inventing basically in the days of the punks, I call them, when it was very on the top of everything, people were creating collections for just basically anything they could think of.
Yeah,
Most of them very unoriginal and repetitive, but everything was selling these days, right? So yeah, and when the market kind of flattens and right now there is like a lot less volatility or a lot of interest happening like every day. Obviously, all of these collections that were just created for quick buck, they're all like dropping and disappearing, which is good because the space and the better things kind of have the chance to pop up and move forward. Like I'm interested in this. Like obviously, I'm not an NFT collector, and I'm not into this like as an art form. Like I'm not. I'm a technical person after all. Um, but I do think that we still have a lot of interesting new things to do, and I will mention like a couple of them, a couple of ideas that we're currently working on. Not just in Beam, but also in Source, for example, is an interesting, I think, application of NFTs, like what they're doing there. So I will talk about that a little. I think it's a very promising direction. I don't know what will come of it, but it's very innovative. So if you like, I will tell you this story, and like if you have any other examples of creative use of NFTs other than PFP, please, you're welcome to raise your hand and tell me about them. It's interesting, but like in technical kind of domain, there are currently several standards of NFTs, and they're all pretty simple. There are standard NFTs, like just one image. You have collections, and you have kind of advanced collections, I would say, like collection of collections. And uh, in Source, what's going on is that they want to use NFTs to represent your reputation on chain. If you, let's say if you're a developer, because Source is about decentralized development platform, and let's say today, when you are contributing actively into the open source projects, and basically you have a lot of contributions that are open to the world, right? You're not working in some private company that's, the code is not visible to anyone outside the company. But if you are contributing, then anyone can theoretically go to, let's say, GitHub, click on your profile and see all of your contributions, like what you're doing, which technologies you're using, which projects you're actively participating in, etc., etc. The problem is that GitHub is a technical system. People who are not developers or not like in this IT ecosystem rarely go there. It's not a social network, even though they are trying to bring forward several social features. Like you can follow developers, you can start them, you can even donate to developers today, you can support them. So there are some interesting features there. But in general, if you just want to understand, okay, I'm looking at this guy, like what he? What kind of development does he do? Like what kind of projects does he participate in? It's very difficult to see because you have to do a lot of investigating. So what Source did, they have collected all this information, they processed it, and they're presenting this kind of like card with all of the important information summarized in this like one like small kind of image. Now, in GitHub, you have something that's called insights. So theoretically, you also can see some kind of statistics, aggregations, or summaries, but it's very poorly done and it's very confusing. So Source did it way better. And now they want to create this kind of NFT that the developer can get and basically present sort of like a PFP, but not for the profile picture, but rather for his repository summary, right? I'm a developer, I'm working on that, using that, etc. Now, the problem with this NFT, you can't use regular NFT because it's not a static image, not something that you get once. It needs to be updated. And this is where this idea of dynamic NFT comes in, right? You have something that can be updated on, every once in a while or like periodically, whatever. Now, it's also a soul-bound NFT, which is, I think, kind of the latest fad, right?
Yeah, there's been a lot of chatter about these in the last few months, right? And for those that are unfamiliar, the soul-bound ones are like, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're non-transferable, so it's kind of attached to your wallet forever, kind of thing.
Yeah, and this makes a lot of sense in this specific use case because it's not like you're going to sell your player card, so to speak, right? It's not like something that can be sold. But rather it is used to, first of all, prove your identity, prove your achievements, and do it in a way that's completely, controlled by you in terms of the keys that you control, right? It's not like anyone, because once again, GitHub, it's a centralized platform governed by a huge company, right? Microsoft, and the data that is on GitHub, it's not your data. It's like their data. They can remove it. They wouldn't do it, just like that. But sometimes they do. Like if you are called Tornado Cache, then you do lose all of
Yeah.
your data suddenly.
Yeah, true.
And yeah, so it's extreme kind of example, very weird one. We talked about it many times before. But in general, it would be nice to have your participation, especially if you are open source developer and everybody can verify that it's actually you're doing, to have it as this kind of NFT based resume of sorts or NFT based kind of visit card of sorts that says, okay, here I am. These are my achievements. These are my skills. These are my accomplishments. These are like everything that I've been doing, represented as an NFT that I own and I can update. I think this is kind of very nice direction that Source can go with.
Yeah, this is cool, and like it reminds me. Actually, I haven't seen it so much, but it reminds me. Oh, sorry, it's not like too similar, but it reminds me a little bit of that one on Ethereum that is the Pope. I don't know how to say it. POAP, and
POAP,
it's like
yeah.
yeah, it's like a proof of attendance
Mm-hmm.
something. Yeah, and this is cool. And I think like for in terms of sorts, making them dynamic and being able to update with like how you in the development that you're doing online and this kind of stuff. It reminds me a little bit about like how I would expect games to NFTs incorporated into them. You could almost have like a game where your is like your player and the stats are updating, your accomplishments are updating, and this kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Like just an example, you remember a few years ago there was this Pokemon Go thing.
Yeah, yeah, people going crazy and like falling into lakes and
Yeah. Some people actually died.
yeah. Oh, really? I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Some people died, and some people were beaten because the Pokemon they were trying to collect was in the middle of, I don't know, bad neighborhood or a church or whatever, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, so it happened. But the point is that people really liked this kind of open, open environment, right? So you are, after all, outside. You're not in like some virtual world. You're in a real world, augmented
yeah,
with these kind of new interesting things. So I'm thinking like, why don't like all, I don't know, restaurants. You go to a restaurant, they have some special event, they have something like give people, you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
give them something to say, oh, I've been in all of these places, I've been doing this, I've been doing that. Like I think it's kind of very basic.
yeah. And it's good. Like I've seen it in London once. I forget what it was, but it was like a restaurant, and I don't know if it was like for your booking or for your like having gone there or something. But they were giving NFTs for like it was either to join some club for the restaurant or something like that. And like I wouldn't have ever paid attention to the restaurant if I didn't see that. And I think that a lot of this can be used very like creatively and cleverly for marketing and this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think it's an amazing promotion technique. By the way, about like 1,000 years ago, I was in Europe somewhere. I went with a few friends, London, Paris, Amsterdam, a few other places. And
Nice.
I remember that when I went to a museum, let's say you know, large museums in Paris and London, they had these gold coins that you could buy for like
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
you had this collection of this like gold coins with the picture of the museum, and it was like this. It was a collectible, right? You said, oh, I went into all of these museums and I want to visit more because I want to add more to my collection.
Yeah,
Now, first of all, you don't really need coins or physical objects for that anymore. You can just have this pop in place.
yeah.
And it can be really interestingly integrated with ton of features. Like for example, I think one of the most successful recent projects in NFT space is StepN, right?
Yeah. And this like a little bit similar thing about like Pokemon Go, where it's like you're in the real world, you're doing stuff, but you're also kind of connected. Obviously, I don't think Stefan had any like augmented reality, but you're kind of tied to online world with the shoes and the energy and this kind of stuff with the real world and getting out and walking and this kind of stuff.
Yeah, so the interesting thing in Step N is that they really invested in the technology
Yeah,
that makes it harder for you to cheat.
yeah,
So you can't just, fake walk. You have to take your phone and you have to walk with it, right? It's kind of, yeah, and if you don't, it will detect it.
yeah,
And it's obviously a centralized kind of thing, right? You have to process phone movement or coordinates or both or whatever. So it is intrusive in that regard. But eventually, you get this new shoe, and this shoe you can trade, you can mint it, you can breed it. I don't know. There were little tiny shoes born every once in a while.
yeah,
Yeah, so I think it's a great kind of combination of this like real world stuff with like virtual stuff.
yeah.
And it's definitely it was a huge success, right? I mean, today it's probably went down because everything the novelty wears off, but people who I would never have suspected suddenly, told me that they're working with it, and I'm like, what? Like, it's amazing. People who are far from crypto, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was like a very popular and kind of cool, and like you said, it got a lot of people that otherwise wouldn't have been interested in crypto involved in this kind of stuff.
And
I
walking.
had some, yeah, I had some shoes, and I was walking, and I was in Dubai at the time, and holy hell, it was it was so hot that I could barely like keep walking, but. Otherwise, I would have been staying inside with the AC on and not getting any exercise. So
Yeah,
it was quite handy.
my wife suddenly like came to me and said, "Listen, I need some Solana," and I'm like, "What? Like,
What do you mean?
what are you
Yeah,
talking about?" Yeah, and I think she's still working with it today because nobody told her. She's not following the crypto news, and nobody told her that it's not worth anything anymore. But I think she still does that.
yeah. I mean,
Can
it's
I
fun
say
as well,
something
right?
on the NFT use?
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course. You
absolutely.
you can interrupt anytime you want. Sorry for
Yeah,
going
I
on for too
apologize.
long.
I apologize for the interruption, but like my personal view of NFTs, and I think today in modern days, it's because most people they're still uneducated what NFTs are. They just look at it, oh, pictures. But in my personal opinion, NFTs they're like certificates of ownership to something. Like and I think the blockchain that adopts a way to where I can officially certify something like, let's say, my ID or ownership of my car, ownership of my or something that I can go from paper to digital and hold and be in possession of privately and only pull up and show to the eyes that I need to see these documentation. I think that will be the ultimate one of the use cases for the NFTs in my personal view. But I think like certifying documents and maybe certifying ownership of something, or even just something simple like a driver license for the something. I think that will be a way better use case for the NFT technology. Like right now, in my opinion, it's all just a money grab and cash grab. Once people wake up to what the real currency that runs these NFTs has the actual value, and NFT is just the technology kind of in addition to that. A lot of these pictures, like, because all it is, the people are buying a certificate saying that you own this monkey picture on such and such server. Some of them are starting to like host it on their blockchain or whatnot, but that's all you own. It's a certificate of ownership, and
Yeah.
if when it all boils down to nothing. So
Mm,
I think
absolutely.
once we start using it in real use cases, that's when the NFT is definitely going to take off. And I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I just think we're using it wrong. That's all.
No, I totally agree. So first of all, a couple of years ago, there was this trend that died eventually of tokenizing everything. And for example, there is a building that you rent, and people are buying like tokens of that building, so they get a share of the profit. So it works like a little bit like shares in that regard. And then like so the the most kind of problematic for this specific trend, that I think that's why it broke down, is because it relied too heavily on other centralized entities actually holding these assets for you and then like giving you these tokens, and it just didn't work out very well. But like interestingly, with NFTs, I mean, in it's very, very applicable in some areas, and I think in other areas, like for example, real estate, it's very difficult to imagine, right? Because we have so many regulations, so many laws, right?
Well,
But
not
if
only
you,
that, that's just physical property. Yeah, absolutely.
right,
But something like representing, okay, you already have, I bought a car, I have a certificate saying that I own a car. Why can't I have a digital certificate to say that I own a car that I can hold privately, in case anything happens to my paper certificate, that I can transfer to another owner that happens to buy the car from me? And if I need to comply, I can comply and I can show whatever documentation, or in digital form. You know what I mean? That's what I'm talking about. It doesn't have to be like tokenizing everything. You know, oh, I see a tree, let's tokenize it. I'm talking about like real use cases once again. So yeah, I mean, of course, a lot of people are going to try this, they're going to fail, but I think the tech is there, and I think that's what it's there for like digital certification, marriage certificates, stuff like that.
yeah, totally. I mean, things that first of all, transcend borders, like driving license is a great example. Like university degrees are also like good examples of things that can be put on chain, and you don't need this papers that you need to drag with you, right? So for example, driver's license, they give you a plastic at least, but if you're talking about any other documents, you really need to move them physically, you need to translate them into languages, you need to do all kinds of lawyer verification that it's actually authentic, like all that
Right.
stuff.
We're far away from that. That's why I said once we get mainstream, like, and we can just go and get that in the digital form right away, and it just happens to be available in the paper form as well. Then that's
Yeah,
when
totally.
we're there.
I totally agree. I think that also things like proof of origin, like what was the first time and place when something happened. I think interesting example, because that's exactly what blockchain solves absolutely amazingly, right? If it's minted in a specific block, it's minted in a specific block, right? You cannot forge the timeline there. That's why it's built that way. And when we're talking about proving origins of many things, actually, like images, maybe articles, other stuff, like because the internet, as it is today in the Web 2 world, it has no history. Like if you think about it, and sometimes it's really crazy. You
Well, the
go to a
web
news,
servers have always
yeah,
been centralized, right? So who controls the web servers when they upgrade them, right? All
no,
the all the data that was on there. So now we have a blockchain to do that. Because what is Beam? Beam is a network. It's like the internet network of things where you can do things, you can program things, you can create things, build websites if you want to. If somebody wants to build a browser for Beam, I'm sure they could, right?
absolutely no. I mean, once in the libraries they had old newspapers, okay. And since it was very difficult to store old newspapers because the paper would, melt and whatever, what they would do, they would microfilm it. I'm sorry, I'm very old, right? Bear with me for a second. They would net, and then let's say if you wanted to see what was the cover page of the New York Times in the 1964, April 17th, you could actually do that. Now, you can do this today, but the problem is that there is absolutely no mechanism that would prevent someone, from tampering, changing this actual image, right? So yeah, you will have a lot of copies, they will be different, but it would be almost impossible to trace the original one because the same servers, the same way of storing that data doesn't have absolutely no proof of origin. So, for example, this is, in my opinion, a must kind of case for NFTs because you own the copyright. You are the New York Times. You own the copyright. It's yours. It's fine. What you can do is you can use the blockchain in order to, first of all, authenticate the originality of your content. you can sell verified copies, right, to whoever wants to own it. You have a lot of things that you can do in order to prove, because today when you go to a news website, you don't even know like when this article was written. It could have been written, long time ago. It could have been changed after the fact, after you read it. So, the people who act properly, they do these kind of little updates and they say the article was updated, but they don't have to. They just do it because they're nice. Theoretically, you can go and just change the content on your web server. No one will ever know. So yes, a database that might be able to trace the transaction, but there's also closed information. Nobody has access to that. So I think it's like very obvious direction to use this.
Yeah, I mean, since there's no way to like fake an original, right? So
yeah, I mean, we're swamped with fake news, swamped with all kinds of information flying around, and it's very difficult to trace the source. But if the source is uploaded by the original author, and you know what? I don't want all of it to be decentralized. And by the way, I'll talk about it in a second, about the decentralization of NFTs, which is also in very poor state, in my opinion. But even if you do use centralized kind of certificate-based system, right? Just like you go to the New York Times website, you see this, lock in the corner, and you click on it, and you see a certificate that it's actually site and not some, phishing site. Use the same idea to upload this content to the blockchain. You don't need to upload the entire content, just need to upload the hash, right? And then store it in some, I don't know, decentralized or centralized repository, but at least I will be able to verify that it's exactly that. And take this idea to the extreme, we get something like SSL, right? So you just basically, instead of verifying that they own the domain, you also verify the authenticity of the web page. So regarding the decentralization, ever since OpenSea became this kind of behemoth in this world, and it's very, very easy to mint on OpenSea and not on the blockchain, because on the blockchain it's more complicated, it's more, it's costly, more expensive. And a lot of these information is actually not stored in neither decentralized repositories nor blockchains. It's actually stored once again on centralized servers of all kinds. And we saw examples like all over the place of images being stored on the Google Cloud, metadata for the images stored on the Google Cloud, right? And just like OpenSea controlling that, or any other like centralized marketplace. And this is one situation where a good idea, which is like useful when implemented in a decentralized way, becomes kind of a joke. When you can basically just, what are you buying there, right? Are you buying something that's really worth it? No, you're buying something that can be as easily changed, only you bought it. So that's also for me kind of an important barrier that we need to overcome. Like when people talk about NFTs and for real life use cases, we need to make sure they're implemented correctly and are really decentralized, so we don't fall for just something old in a new wrapping.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there will be many gimmicks, and I mean, I think a lot of companies are gonna start good ideas and like ways and maybe go under, but they're gonna start something, an idea that's gonna go further down. You know what I mean? And there's just gonna be that sacrifice that's gonna go down in history or whatnot. But just like the guy that bought the pizza for how many bitcoins, 10,000 or something. So stuff is gonna. We're just gonna have to charge it to the game, but I think in the long run, if you think about it, NFTs, they're just going to be used as like your digital identity to just about everything.
Totally. Where is Russell? Speaking of NFTs, Russell is not. He's not here, or is he? He was probably doing something more important.
He may be listening in, I think.
Yeah,
I can't see his Twitter. I have like a very strong opinions on all of this. I don't think we're doing NFTs wrong at all. Like, I think art is one of the best use cases there is for NFTs. And the reason I think that is because as soon as you involve like the digital and the physical world together, then it becomes way more complicated. If you remember, there was like a spout of bored apes getting fished from people. And if this happened with, for example, your like car ownership papers or your house title or whatever that's an NFT, then it becomes either like useless or you lose your physical property by some strange concept. And if it's not like if it's not being used in like a mutable manner, then to me at least it seems kind of like a waste of time to do it at all. Like what you mentioned about having like certificates of ownership, I think this is for sure one of the use cases. Although I feel like the best case for that is art. And if you look at like art collectors and this kind of stuff, one of the things that any art collector at a guest, they would have stuff that they can't display, or they don't want to display because they don't want to get it damaged. They can't display it because they only have so many walls and this kind of stuff. If you have NFT art, then you're solving all of these problems because there's infinite wall space in the metaverse, I'm told, and it can't get damaged and this kind of stuff. Obviously, it can get
Yeah,
stolen, but
I
I'm
mean,
sorry, I'm sorry, guys. I have to disagree with you. It
yeah.
cannot be art because you cannot throw soup at it.
Well, the thing
you
is, this is how I look at it. What are those collections doing for those collectors versus the coin that they could have had at this point of time and at this time of market? You know what I mean? Can they go buy their groceries with that NFT collection or those pictures? For the most part, no. You know, and in a way, okay, maybe not exactly wrong. I think it's being used in a manipulative way by the people who do understand the tech against the people who yet not understand the tech. And once they get burned, that's when they start doing this research and more in depth. What did I do wrong here? You know, how did I end up here? Because if you look at it, Twitter is full of nothing but it. You know, if there is anyone on Twitter left, it's the people who actually still hold the coin, not the pictures.
I don't know.
So
I strongly disagree. I mean, like, we just talked about the punk floor, and it's 100,000 US dollars, and people are buying them every day almost. So I don't.
what is their okay? What is their volume? I haven't really looked at it, so I'm just asking. I honestly don't know what their daily volume on their floor punks versus
I
like
also
so the
don't know.
top projects in the crypto space, or at least top 20.
Oh yeah, I mean, like the
You
like
know, because they
volume
saw because
on
I would
Bitcoin.
imagine those crypto punks were on the Ethereum chain. So how are they performing? And I don't know. We could agree to disagree, but maybe the way I look at it, it is being used in the wrong way by a manipulative party. And people just don't understand it yet or don't see it. But once they realize it, that they've been scammed, and the tech, I believe in the tech. I solidly believe in NFT technology, and I think it is here to stay for 1,000%. But I just think it's not being used in the way that is it, intended or is supposed to be used. I think to but we can
I
agree to
agree.
disagree.
I mean, I read an article a few days ago on the channel, like from a friend of mine, and he's mostly working in decentralized identity space. And one of the things he said there that I really strongly kind of connected to was um, when we're trying to solve, like it all comes to usability, right? It all comes to usability of Web3 tools. And instead of trying to, kind of circumvent this problem by creating these Web2 front ends for Web3 technology, what we need to focus on is to actually improving our wallets, improving our like really decentralized tools. And NFTs, in my opinion, is like one of the good examples for that as well. Because when you're using like intermediaries, OpenSea or any other kind of form, you are still living in the Web2 world, right? You're kind of dealing with Web3 matters, but you are still in the Web2 technology world. And I think, we are all here much more advanced in kind of realizing what it means to be in Web3 in terms of like what does your holding your private keys mean, and how to operate this technology. And if we manage to cross this chasm between the current state of Web3 technology and the point where people without really special knowledge can operate it safely, I think that's where we will see more kind of growth in both real world usage and whatever art or not. But it's still going to be important to kind of master this part, right? Master how you manage your identity, how you operate this. That's, I think, one of the kind of bigger issues, not just for NFT, but Web3 in general, that will be need to solve like before we can move forward.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting, whatever happens.
Well, that's for sure. Yeah, the times are kind of too interesting, I would say, sometimes. Yeah, so I totally agree. Now, obviously, like I'm not going to go into this essential, and it will also be spreading to these domains. And I mentioned this before, but we sometimes see like companies that are trying to do not just trading or financial activities, but more like real world scenarios in the Web3 space. One of the first problems they are running into is privacy, and NFT is no exception. NFT privacy, well, it's non-existent because it's on Ethereum, but it's kind of completely opposite of what people want, right? They don't want just like anyone to know everything about what they're doing, what they're holding. And the same goes for your like about documents. You cannot have documents on chain without privacy. It's not like it's not safe.
Right. That's why I mentioned,
Yeah.
that would be the advantage in Beam, because you could have documentation you don't want your whole world to see, and you can hold it in privacy.
Yeah, absolutely. Because in different places in the world, things work differently. But for example, in some places you can get a loan by just having somebody's ID number or social security number or some number, right, that represents them. That's why, for example, long time ago, we were doing some contracts with people from like Eastern Europe, and we said, oh, just send a copy of your passport. And I'm like, what? We never send a copy of our passport to anyone. It can be used to take loan. Like, what are you talking about? Like, here it's not possible. Yeah, like you can't just send your documents all over the place. And obviously, you don't want to put them on a public blockchain, because then every Yahoo in the world will be getting access to them and using them every way you can.
Now, where would the image to those documents or to those certificates be stored? Would that also stay private? That would be my only concern.
Yeah, so until now, we did not encrypt the content. We only in Beam specifically protected the identity of the owner and the financial details of the transaction in some cases, like, right, if we're talking about confidential assets. But it doesn't have to be the case. Like, theoretically, it's very possible to encrypt the content as well using things like encryptions that can be exchanged. Like, let's say you're selling something encrypted to someone, you can prove that the encrypted item is actually the item that is in question. It's possible to prove that. And then it will be downloaded and re-encrypted by the new owner, so it will stay encrypted at all days. So it's possible to design such schemes. Obviously, we just didn't get to this because we had no real use cases for that. But yeah, by the way, once again, getting back to Source, this is also the reason that Source started as repositories, because they didn't want to deal with the encrypting the content on the drive. But when you are talking about closed source repositories managed in a decentralized way, that's exactly what you're going to have to do. And even more complex, you'll have to manage the permissions, because when you have the source code for a project that has several people working on it, you can't just have one key. It's not safe. You will have to have some kind of multi-sig scheme to manage that. And like, what happens if somebody is fired or leaves or whatever, then you need to re-encrypt it. You need to remove his key from the multi-sig. So yeah, it's quite a lot of hassle, but it is possible with today's technology.
Yeah, I think encrypted certificates or like proof of ownership, that's going to be really, really next level. And
Totally. Cool. Ah, I see Tico. Now suddenly I realize. I forgot that people change quickly these days. Um, Gus, do you know exactly which projects or what people are doing for Halloween on our network who are not us? Because I think somebody is doing
Oh,
something.
I don't know, actually. I don't know if I never pay much attention to Halloween. Oh, but there is something on Beam Network coming out for Halloween, and this is from VS Nation. And let me find the name. And this is a game, if I understand it correctly.
Yeah. VS Nation is a little bit angry with us because we could not help him enough. And yeah, we were very. He really tried to use many of our technologies, which, as you know, are very complicated and not very well documented, which is our pain. And yeah, I hope eventually he managed to try to help. So I will be definitely looking to see what he's done.
Yeah. Apart from I don't know anything happening for Halloween. I think I have to go out tomorrow night to trick or treat or whatever it is. But apart from that, I haven't paid much attention.
I see. Yeah, I think I have some pumpkin in that we're going to make pumpkin pasta and something.
That
I don't
sounds
know.
delicious.
Yeah, my wife found some recipe, so that's as close to Halloween that we're going to get. But anyway.
And the election on Tuesday.
Oh man, listen, there was a funny story. There was a funny story recently, unbelievable. Um, a lot of people are coming to Israel now from Russia and many other places because of all of the problems there.
Yeah.
And in some group, I think it was on Facebook, but I'm not sure. In some like closed group of these, like somebody said, "Oh, like why isn't there a pumpkin latte in Israel?"
A
Okay.
latte.
Yeah. The girl she wanted her pumpkin latte. But the funny thing is that this story became viral, and I have no idea how. It even got to the national television here. And yeah, I don't know how, but immediately after that, a lot of coffee houses and coffee shops started saying, "Oh, we have pumpkin latte. Come to visit us." So we actually went, we went to one of them a couple of days ago, and there was a pumpkin latte, and my wife took a pumpkin latte. I don't know, I'm not a big fan of these kind of weird coffees. I like just the good old plain espresso or whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah, now we officially have pumpkin lattes in Israel. So if you're ever here and you need a pumpkin latte, call me. I'll tell you where to find them.
My mind is blown. I love coffee and drink it every day, but I've never even contemplated the idea of a pumpkin latte. I'm gonna have to come for a holiday to Israel just to try it.
Definitely, definitely.
Where where
Yeah.
where did it come from? Like which country invented
I
the
have no
pumpkin latte?
idea. I have no idea. But each place has their own kind of coffee culture, right? Different like types, different tastes, different everything. So I don't know. But somehow this specific you immigrate to another country, you leave everything behind or no whatever, like you're in completely new place, new culture and everything. What is the thing that you miss? Pumpkin latte.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
must
All
must
right.
be good.
Yeah, I hope it. Anyway, I think we'll be wrapping up today.
Perfect.
Um, Couple of things that I want to mention towards the end. Starting this week, we will start organizing the process that we've been discussing last time.
Yeah.
The process of development based on like specific feature requests. The one thing that we will need to decide is whether we want a separate call uh, and what time, like if we do for our like day dev updates, weekly dev updates, and like more technical stuff, like real discussions. Not necessarily technical in the sense of code and stuff like that, but we're going to go feature by feature. We're going to talk about it, discuss, what we're going to vote on, like, or discuss in the forum, which problems we foresee with implementation, how much time it can take, all of these kind of things. So we will be deliberating on that, and we will obviously ask your opinion. So please stay tuned in Twitter and in Telegram, and we will post probably polls or like open discussions about how to make this better. And we will start managing the threads in the forum to propose specific features, prioritize them, and then get them into development. 7.2, as you know, is out. Finally, this week it was released. Already, I know a lot of different assets are flying around there, which is good. And the next steps, as you know, are bridges currently in testing. DEX is being implemented right now. Yeah, so things are moving forward, and yeah, we'll keep you posted.
Wicked. And just to clarify, we will have the regular space and also a space on the proposals and this kind of stuff, right?
That's what I think would be best, because I really like these spaces. I think they're great. Like every once in a while they talk about things in general, like today, but most of these spaces are dedicated to our plans, to our situation, like in general, and like what's happening with the project. I think it will be great to preserve a separate space for for this, and have a separate space for technical stuff, because I think for the technical stuff it will be probably kind of well, technical. Yeah. But yeah, we will make it open. We will like vote on it or discuss it or make a poll. So we will try to consider all our options, both in terms of like time of day, because it's difficult to manage like different time zones in an efficient way. So somebody is always left outside of it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next week. And stay tuned.
Absolutely.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you, guys.